The sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth. Emma's throat was dry, her lips cracked, and every breath she took felt like swallowing hot dust. The endless stretch of sand and scrub stretched out in every direction, the sky above a blazing, blue dome with no hint of shade or shelter. She stumbled forward, her bare feet blistered and bleeding from the rocky ground. The pack she carried was nearly empty, save for a few sips of water and a thin blanket. She hadn't expected to be here, not like this, not abandoned. Only days ago, she had been part of a group, a small caravan moving cautiously across the borderlands. They had promised safety, a chance to start over. But when trouble came, when the heat and thirst pushed everyone to their limits, she was left behind. The others hadn't even looked back, just vanished into the horizon like ghosts. Her heart ached, but it was the cold weight of betrayal that stung the most. How could they leave her to die? She had trusted them. She had counted on them. Emma dropped to her knees beside a cracked rock, swallowing hard as she tried to quiet the scream rising in her chest. Her legs trembled, but there was no time to rest. She knew she wouldn't survive long out here alone. The desert was unforgiving. The sun drained her strength. The sand shifted beneath her feet, and the nights were frigid and lonely. She had no map, no compass, just a faint memory of a distant ridge where she hoped to find water. But the desert seemed endless, and every step was agony. She tried to remember everything she'd learned about survival, but her mind was fogged by hunger and fear. She had watched the plants and animals around her, trying to spot anything edible or useful. The thorny bushes could hide small rodents, but catching one without a tool was nearly impossible. As the hours dragged on, Emma's thoughts began to wander. She thought of her family, long gone, of the life she had once dreamed of, and the person she wanted to become. She refused to give up. Not yet. Somewhere beyond the shimmering heat waves, she saw the faint silhouette of a figure on horseback. At first, she thought it was a trick of her exhausted mind, but the figure grew closer, steady and calm, moving with a quiet confidence. The rider was a man, dressed in worn leather and dust-stained clothes. His hat cast a shadow over his face, hiding his eyes, but there was something steady and strong about him. He pulled his horse to a gentle halt a few feet away and looked at Emma without speaking. For a moment, Emma was too tired to speak or even cry. She just watched him, unsure if he was friend or foe. But the man didn't make a threatening move. Instead, he reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a canteen, holding it out to her. "Water," he said quietly. Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to trust him, but the desert had taught her to be wary. "Why help me?" she whispered. He shrugged, then gestured toward the horizon. "Because no one deserves to die out here alone." His voice was soft but steady, like the desert wind that never ceased. There was no judgment, no pity, just a calm determination. Emma hesitated, then took the canteen with shaking hands and drank deeply. The cold water was like a miracle, soothing her cracked lips and giving her a flicker of hope. "Names." "Sam," the man said, lowering his hat to reveal kind eyes beneath the brim. "You look like you could use some help." Emma wanted to say no, to keep moving on her own, to prove she could survive without anyone else. But the truth was, she was tired. Too tired. She nodded slowly. "I'm Emma." Sam dismounted and sat on a nearby rock, pulling out a small knife and some rope from his saddlebag. "You've got spirit," he said, "but out here, spirit isn't enough. You need to learn how to fight back." Emma looked at him, puzzled. Fight back? Against what? Against the desert. Against those who'd see you broken. Against yourself. Sometimes. She didn't understand it yet, but she knew one thing for certain. If she was going to live, she needed this quiet cowboy. And, maybe, just maybe, he would teach her how to survive more than just the desert. The desert sun was beginning its slow descent when Emma finally gathered enough strength to sit upright beside the small campfire Sam had built. The flames flickered, casting long shadows across the rocky ground, while the sky turned shades of deep orange and purple. The cool evening air was a relief after the relentless heat of the day. Sam sat quietly across from her, tending to the fire with practiced hands. His movements were calm, deliberate, the way of someone who had spent countless nights out under the stars, knowing how to coax a flame from mere tinder and dry brush. Emma watched him for a moment, curiosity mingling with gratitude. She still wasn't sure what to make of this quiet cowboy who had appeared out of nowhere, but the thought of facing another day alone in the desert was unbearable. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. Breaking the silence, Sam glanced up, his weathered face unreadable in the firelight. Doesn't matter, he said simply. Everyone deserves a chance. Emma frowned. But you didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. He shrugged again, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Maybe I do owe you. Or maybe I just know what it's like to be left behind. Emma hesitated, sensing that behind his quiet exterior was a story she wasn't yet ready to hear. You're not like the others, she said softly. You don't just leave people to die. Sam's gaze drifted to the darkening horizon. No, I don't. For a moment, they sat in silence, the only sound, the crackling fire and distant cries of desert creatures waking for the night. Emma pulled her knees close to her chest, feeling the ache in her muscles and the dull throb in her feet. I don't know how to survive out here, she admitted. I've never done this before. That's why I'm here, Sam replied. You're not going to make it on spirit alone. Emma studied him, searching for some sign of toughness or fierceness beneath his quiet demeanor. But what she saw instead was steady patience, and an unwavering calm that seemed to fill the space between them. Teach me, she said. Sam nodded. First lesson, respect the land. The desert can kill you just as easily as any man. It's not just about fighting, it's about knowing when to hold on, and when to let go. Over the next days, Sam showed Emma how to read the desert, how to find signs of water beneath the sand, how to track the subtle movement of animals, and how to avoid the deadly plants and insects hidden among the rocks. His lessons were quiet and practical, filled with small wisdom earned from years spent wandering alone. Emma struggled at first. She was clumsy and unsure, prone to making mistakes that cost her valuable energy. But Sam was patient. He never scolded, or pushed too hard. Instead, he encouraged her gently, reminding her that learning to survive was a slow process. One morning, he took her to a dry riverbed. Look here, he said, kneeling beside a patch of disturbed sand. Animals come here at night to drink. If you can find their tracks, you can find water. Emma leaned in, tracing the faint prints with her fingers. But what if the water's gone? Then you keep looking, Sam replied. And you don't give up. It was more than just survival skills. There was a lesson in resilience, in persistence, that Emma was beginning to understand. As days passed, Emma's confidence grew. She learned to light a fire without matches, to fashion a spear from a branch, and even to ride Sam's horse, a sturdy black stallion named Shadow. The horse was fierce but loyal, a silent partner in the vast, lonely wilderness. Sam never pushed her too hard, but he never let her give up either, and slowly, Emma felt a shift inside her, a new strength, born from pain and perseverance. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Emma sat beside Sam on a ridge overlooking the desert. The vast landscape stretched out before them, endless and unforgiving. I don't think I could have made it without you, she said quietly. Sam shrugged. You had it in you all along. I just helped you find it. Emma looked at him, the weight of her past and the uncertainty of her future pressing in on her. But for the first time in a long while, she felt hope. Not just a fragile hope, but something stronger, the kind that comes from knowing you're not alone. Thank you, she whispered. Sam nodded, his quiet eyes reflecting the fading light. Tomorrow, we keep moving. There's more to learn, more to face. Emma took a deep breath, ready to face whatever the desert and life had in store for her. Because now, she wasn't just surviving. She was learning to fight back. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert horizon, casting long shadows and turning the sky a soft shade of pink. Emma woke before dawn, the cool air brushing against her skin as she stretched stiff limbs. The night had been quiet, except for the distant calls of coyotes and the rustling of desert brush. Sam was already up, sitting near the small fire he had rekindled, sharpening the blade of his knife with a focused calm. Emma watched him for a moment, realizing just how different he was from anyone she'd ever met. A man who didn't waste words but carried the weight of wisdom in every quiet gesture. Ready for today's lesson? He asked without looking up. Emma nodded. I want to learn everything. Sam stood and gestured toward the rocky terrain beyond their camp. Today, we start with fighting. Emma blinked in surprise. Fighting? Against what? Not just people, Sam said as he picked up a sturdy branch shaped like a staff. Sometimes the fight is against fear, against the desert itself, and sometimes against those who mean to harm you. He handed her a similar branch. It was heavier than she expected, rough against her skin but solid in her grip. First, you learn to stand your ground, Sam said, moving into a stance that was both balanced and ready. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent. Keep You're weight-centered. Emma mimicked his stance, wobbling at first, then finding her balance. The desert floor was uneven, but Sam's calm instructions helped her feel more grounded. Now, blocking, Sam continued, demonstrating a simple move to deflect an incoming strike. Use your arms, but don't rely only on strength. Use momentum, angle, and timing. Emma tried to follow, swinging her staff awkwardly. Several times, she nearly lost her footing or missed the timing altogether. You're too tense, Sam said quietly. Relax, trust your body. After several attempts, she began to flow with the movements. Each block and counterattack was less about brute force and more about control and intention. Hours passed as they practiced under the relentless sun. Sweat dripped down Emma's forehead, but she barely noticed. This was more than training. It was reclaiming her power, piece by piece. When Sam finally lowered his staff, he nodded. Good, you're learning fast. Emma smiled, breathless but proud. Thank you. The afternoon brought a different challenge. Tracking and hunting. Sam led her through the rocky canyons, teaching her to read footprints, broken twigs, and disturbed sand. He showed her how to move quietly, how to hide in shadows, and how to use the environment to her advantage. At one point, they spotted a rabbit darting between the rocks. Sam demonstrated how to silently draw a bow, a simple but effective weapon he had crafted himself. Emma watched closely as he nocked an arrow and released it with precision. Her turn came next. She took the bow, feeling its weight awkward in her hands. The first few shots missed, but Sam encouraged her to steady her breath and focus. On the third try, the arrow struck its target, a small piece of wood. Emma's heart surged with excitement. She had done it. Sam smiled, his quiet approval filling her with warmth. You'll need skills like these if you want to survive out here. That night, as they sat by the fire, Emma felt a deep shift inside her. The fear and despair that had gripped her were loosening. She was no longer just a victim of circumstance. She was becoming a fighter. Sam handed her a small flask of water. Survival isn't just about strength, he said. It's about knowing your limits and pushing beyond them. Emma nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but for the first time, she believed she could walk it. Before sleep claimed her, she looked out over the desert, the stars twinkling like distant promises. She was no longer alone, no longer lost. She was ready to fight back. The desert night was cold and silent, the vastness of the sky above Emma and Sam filled with countless stars. Around their small fire, the flickering flames cast soft shadows, the only light in the otherwise dark wilderness. Emma stared into the fire, her thoughts tangled with memories she had buried deep. After days of learning how to survive and fight back, something inside her was shifting. But there was still one battle she had yet to face, the one inside her own heart. Glanced at Sam, who was quietly sharpening his knife. The man who had saved her, taught her, and stood beside her without judgment or questions. For all his quiet strength, he seemed a mystery she longed to understand. I want to tell you why I was left in the desert, Emma said softly. Breaking the silence, Sam looked up, nodding slowly. Whenever you're ready. Emma took a deep breath. The words felt heavy, like stones she had been carrying alone for too long. It wasn't an accident. The people I was traveling with, they didn't want me to come with them anymore. They said I was a liability. She swallowed hard, the hurt still raw. They thought I'd slow them down, that I'd get us all killed. Sam listened without interrupting, his steady presence a balm to her pain. I was naive, Emma continued, voice trembling. I trusted them. I thought we were in it together, that they cared about me. But when the time came, they just left me behind. Like I was nothing. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows across her face. She looked away, trying to hold back tears. Sam reached out, placing a rough hand gently on her shoulder. Sometimes, people do terrible things out of fear, or selfishness. But that doesn't mean you're worthless. Emma met his gaze, searching the depths of his quiet eyes. Why didn't you leave me? Why did you come back? He shrugged, the faintest smile, touching his lips. Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because I know what it feels like to be left alone. Emma's heart quickened. You have a story too. Sam nodded. I lost someone once. Someone I cared about. Got separated in these same lands. I spent months trying to find my way back. It changes you. Makes you stronger. Or it breaks you. She was surprised by his openness. For the first time, Sam's silence seemed like a shield guarding his own pain. "Maybe that's why I help people like you," he said quietly, "because I remember what it's like to be lost." Emma looked down, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "I don't want to be lost anymore. I want to fight. To live." Sam's hand tightened on her shoulder. "You will. You've already started." The night grew deeper, but something had shifted between them, a new understanding, a fragile trust born from shared pain. Emma felt a spark of hope flicker inside her. The past still haunted her, but she wasn't going to let it define her anymore. Together, beneath the endless desert sky, they sat side by side, two souls learning to heal, to trust, and to face the future. The heat of the midday sun pressed down on the desert like a heavy weight. But Emma felt a new kind of pressure building inside her, one not from the environment, but from the return of a threat she'd hoped was behind her. It had started, the night before, when distant voices carried on the wind. Rough, shouting men, riding horses fast and sure, coming closer. Emma's heart hammered in her chest. The people who had left her behind, the ones who'd abandoned her to die, had found her again. She glanced at Sam, who was scanning the horizon with calm, alert eyes. There was no panic in him, only steady readiness. "They're coming," she said quietly. Sam nodded. "We've got to be ready." For days, they had traveled the desert together, learning how to survive and fight. Emma's skills had grown, not just in endurance, but in determination and courage. Now those lessons would be put to the test. Sam helped Emma prepare their small camp for defense. They gathered rocks to build low barriers, hid behind boulders, and positioned themselves where they could see any approach from miles away. "They won't expect resistance," Sam said. "Most people like them assume fear will make you run." Emma felt a surge of defiance. She wasn't the scared girl left in the desert anymore. She was stronger, and she was ready. When the riders appeared on the ridge, Emma could see the hard faces and the glint of weapons. They shouted insults, trying to provoke a reaction. Sam's voice was calm but firm. "Stay behind me." Emma gripped the spear she had learned to wield, her hands steady. She met the gaze of one of the men, a cruel smile on his face, and felt a wave of anger rise inside her. One rider called out, "Thought we lost you. Girl, thought you'd rot out here?" Emma's voice rang out clear and strong. "I didn't rot, I survived." Sam stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You left her to die. That makes you weak, not her." The men laughed, but their eyes flicked nervously as Emma and Sam moved with quiet confidence. The showdown wasn't about brute force, it was about control, courage, and refusing to be broken. Emma used the spear to keep the closest rider at bay, moving with new agility and purpose. Sam's knife flashed in the sun as he deflected an attack, protecting her without hesitation. The riders, surprised by the resistance, began to hesitate. Emma's voice grew stronger. "You can't scare me. I'm not the girl you left behind." One by one, the men lowered their weapons, realizing they faced someone changed, someone who had learned to fight back. Sam's eyes met Emma's. "You did good." Breathing hard but unbroken, Emma stood tall as the riders turned and rode away, defeated not by violence, but by courage and resolve. The desert stretched quiet once more. But Emma felt something new, a deep well of strength inside her, forged through hardship and tempered by trust. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. The sun was just beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the desert floor as Emma and Sam prepared for the final confrontation. The threat that had haunted Emma since her abandonment was no longer a distant danger, it was here, closing in fast, but this time she wasn't afraid. The camp was silent except for the whisper of the desert wind, rustling through sparse brush and shifting sand. Emma checked her spear one last time, the weapon feeling like an extension of her arm. Her muscles, once weak and trembling, were now steady and strong. She glanced at Sam, who stood a few feet away, calm and ready. "We've come a long way," she said softly. Sam nodded. "And you've earned every step." Their opponents had made a mistake assuming she was helpless. Now, Emma was determined to prove them wrong. The men arrived just as the sun kissed the horizon, their horses kicking up dust as they approached the rocky outcrop where Emma and Sam had taken their stand. The riders sneered, expecting an easy fight. But Emma was ready not just physically, but mentally. She was no longer the frightened girl they had left in the desert. Sam whispered, "Remember what I taught you. Stay focused. Use what you've learned." Emma's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. As the first rider charged forward, She raised her spear and met him head-on, using the staff to parry and push back. Her movements were fluid and precise. Every strike purposeful. Sam engaged another attacker with his knife, defending Emma with quiet skill. Together, they moved like shadows in the fading light, covering each other without a word. The fight was intense but controlled. Emma dodged and blocked, striking with the spear's end and using her weight to keep her balance on the uneven ground. Her training had prepared her for this moment. One of the riders lunged, but Emma sidestepped, twisting and bringing her spear down just enough to unseat the attacker without causing serious harm. She wasn't here to destroy, she was here to defend herself and claim her strength. The others hesitated, surprised by the determination and skill she displayed. It was clear she was no longer a victim to be toyed with. Sam's voice rang out, "Leave now, or face the consequences." After a tense moment, the riders exchanged uneasy glances and slowly began to retreat. Emma stood tall, spear in hand, breathing hard but victorious. As the dust settled and the last horse disappeared into the distance, Emma felt a surge of pride and relief wash over her. The desert had tested her in every way, but she had fought back. And she had won. Sam approached, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "You did it. You fought back." Emma looked out over the desert, the stars beginning to twinkle in the twilight sky. "I'm not the same person I was. I won't be." Sam smiled quietly. "Good, because this land isn't easy, but neither are you." That night, as they sat by the fire once more, Emma realized that the desert had shaped her in unexpected ways. It had taken everything from her but also given her a new strength and the courage to face whatever came next. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, fighting, and reclaiming her story. The first light of dawn crept over the desert, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. Emma stood at the edge of a rocky ridge, looking out over the vast expanse she had once feared and now called home. The desert, with all its harshness and beauty, had become a place of transformation, a silent teacher that had forged her into someone new. Beside her, Sam adjusted his saddle and glanced her way. "Ready to move on?" Emma smiled, the weight in her chest feeling lighter than it had in months. "I think so." For weeks, they had traveled together, facing the relentless sun, the biting cold of night, and the dangers that lurked in between. Emma had learned to trust her instincts, to read the land, and most importantly, to fight back when needed. But this journey was about more than survival. It was about reclaiming her life, one step at a time. As they prepared to leave their camp behind, Emma felt a mixture of gratitude and sadness. The desert had tested her, but it had also given her a quiet strength she never knew she had. "Thank you," she said, meeting Sam's steady gaze. "For everything," he nodded. "You earned it. Just remember, the fight isn't over. Life will always throw challenges your way." Emma looked down at her hands, scarred but strong. "I'm ready." They mounted their horses and rode toward the horizon, the endless desert stretching before them like a promise of new beginnings. With every mile, Emma felt the weight of her past lighten. The fear, the betrayal, and the loneliness were still there, but they no longer controlled her. She was a survivor, a fighter, and this vast, unforgiving land had shown her how to stand tall. As the sun climbed higher, warming their backs, Emma breathed deeply. The desert was no longer a place of death, but a place of hope. Together, she and Sam rode forward into whatever the future might hold.